My name is Irene, and the night my son betrayed me began with pie and small talk. The table was full, my grandchildren laughing, my daughter-in-law Emily serving stew, my son Mark checking his phone more than his own family. The kind of quiet dinner where you can feel something breaking under the surface but no one says a word. For 40 years this farm had been my heart. Every fence post, every apple tree, every sunrise, built, planted, or endured with my late husband Carl. After he passed, the land was my rhythm, my reason, my proof that love could grow back from grief. That night, Mark cleared his throat. "Mom," he said, "we need to talk about the future." I smiled, thinking he meant succession. He had always said he'd keep the land going after me, but the way he said we made my stomach tighten. "Of course," I said. "What's on your mind?" Emily looked down. The grandchildren went quiet. Mark's eyes were cold, practical, the way lawyers look when they already know the verdict. "You're 71, he said. "You shouldn't have to worry about bills or maintenance. I've talked to a few investors. They're offering a fair price for the farm." I froze. "You want to sell the farm?" He nodded. "It's too much work for you, Mom. You could live in town closer to doctors. We could handle everything." That word again. But his tone didn't sound like help. It sounded like erasure. "I'm not selling," I said. "This land stays with the family." He smiled soft, patronizing. "Exactly. It is family land. Which is why I've already drafted the paperwork to transfer ownership. You'll still live here, but I'll manage it." My heart thudded. "You what?" He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Power of attorney, deed adjustments, trust updates. You just need to sign, Mom. I've already talked to our attorney." "Our attorney? You mean yours?" Emily whispered. "Mark, maybe not tonight." He ignored her. "Mom, this is for your own good. You're not getting younger. And if you wait, taxes will eat half the property anyway. I'm protecting your legacy." He slid the papers toward me. My hand shook, but not from fear, from fury. "Your father built this place with his hands. You want to sell it to strangers for cash." He sighed. "Not strangers, developers. They'll make it a resort. It's the best offer you'll ever get." The room went still. The only sound was the clock ticking above the fireplace, the same clock his father fixed after our first winter here. I looked at Emily. She looked away. "Leave the papers," I said quietly. "I'll think about it." He smiled again, the way people smile when they think they've won. "Good. I'll come by tomorrow with the notary." After they left, I sat alone at the table. The pie was untouched. The paper sat beside it, neat, cruel, final. I stared at the signature line with my name typed beneath it. Irene Caldwell, owner. For decades reduced to one empty line. That night I walked the fields in silence. The cold bit my fingers, but I kept moving. Every fence post, every barn door. Memories spoke louder than wind. Mark thought he was clever. But he'd forgotten something. I had learned survival from drought, debt, and death itself. I didn't need anger. I needed proof. By morning, I was at the county records office when it opened. The clerk looked up from her coffee, surprised. "Morning, Irene. What brings you here so early?" "I need to see my property file," I said. She pulled the folder from the shelf. I flipped through the pages and my heart stopped. The new deed was already stamped, filed 3 days ago. Filed by Mark Caldwell. My name wasn't missing, it was replaced. That's when I realized it wasn't just a betrayal. It was theft wrapped in family paper. But Mark had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the woman who raised him. Because by the time he thought he owned my land, I already had a plan that would take it all back. And make sure it never belonged to him again. The next morning I drove to the only lawyer my son didn't control, my late husband's oldest friend. And what he told me would change everything. The courthouse smelled of dust and paper. I waited in the clerk's office until they unlocked the records room. Every step of this place echoed with 40 years of work my son had just erased. The old clerk, Marjorie, looked up from her desk. "Irene, what's going on? You never come here unless something's wrong." I handed her the copy of the new deed. "Tell me if this is legal." She adjusted her glasses, frowning. "Your signature isn't here. Only your son's." "He filed it without me." She flipped through the pages. He used a durable power of attorney. It gives him temporary authority, but... She paused. Did you ever sign this document? Never. She nodded slowly. Then he forged it. But he made another mistake. She pointed to a small stamp at the bottom of the page. It's filed, not recorded. That means it's pending verification. You've got 48 hours before it finalizes. 48 hours. That was all I had. Who can stop it? I asked. She hesitated. Someone who knows the old filings. Someone who knows Carl's paperwork. That name opened the next door in my memory. Henry Whitaker. My husband's best friend, our former lawyer. And the man who helped us write the original deed. By noon, I was sitting in Henry's small office outside town. His hair was white now, his voice slower, but his mind was still sharp as barbed wire. Irene, he said, reading the papers, this is ugly work. Your son used a forged power of attorney to transfer ownership. That's a felony. He thinks I'll never fight him, I said. He doesn't know who taught me to. Henry smiled faintly. Carl would be proud. But we need more than anger. We need leverage. He opened his filing cabinet and pulled out a yellowed folder labeled Caldwell Farm. Original deed. Do you remember the clause Carl insisted on? He asked. I shook my head. That was decades ago. He flipped to the last page and pointed. Here. In the event of any fraudulent transfer, ownership reverts to the original grantor, or their direct descendants. Carl wanted to protect the land from outsiders. He never imagined he'd need to protect it from your own blood. Descendants, I said. That means Mark's kids. Exactly. If we prove fraud, the property reverts not to you, but to your grandchildren. I stared at the page. The words glowed like salvation. So, if the deed finalizes, I can't take it back, but they can. Henry nodded. You'll need to transfer your interests before the fraud becomes permanent. Quietly. No announcements. No signatures in public. I took a breath. Can we do it today? He smiled. We already started. We worked for hours drafting new documents, verifying Carl's old signature, notarizing every seal. The plan was simple. I would legally transfer the farm to my grandchildren under the clause Carl left behind, freezing Mark's forged deed in limbo. It would look like a grandmother's gift, not a counterattack. When it was done, Henry handed me a fresh copy. You just place the land where no court can touch it. Your son can't contest without admitting his own crime. I looked at the paper. Ownership. Ethan and Lily Caldwell. My grandchildren. Their names printed where his greed tried to replace mine. Now what? I asked. Now we wait, Henry said. Let him walk into his own trap. I drove home as the sun bled behind the hills. Mark's truck was already in the driveway. He was waiting on the porch, confident, smiling. A man certain of victory. He held up the folder I'd refused to sign. I brought the notary, Mom. Let's get this done. I stepped out of the car, steady as stone. You're too late, Mark. His smile faltered. What do you mean? I handed him the old deed, folded open to Carl's clause. You forgot who wrote this land story. He frowned, reading fast. What is this? Your father's words, I said. The farm protects itself. He looked up, confused, laughing it off. Mom, you don't understand how this works. But I did. Better than he ever would. That night, the county office called. The verification clerk had caught his forged signature. But before I could breathe, another shock came. Mark had already moved money from my account to cover legal costs. He was going to steal everything. The phone rang at midnight. I almost didn't answer, but something in my chest told me to. It was Marjorie from the county office. Irene, she whispered. We flagged your son's signature. The deed is on hold pending review. Relief lasted 2 seconds. Then she added. But the bank sent a fraud alert. Someone accessed your account this evening. My blood froze. I'll check it myself, I said. The next morning I logged into my account. Balance 0. Every cent from 40 years of farming gone. The transfer note read. Whitmore Holdings legal retainer. My own son had used my name to pay his lawyer. I printed the statement and drove straight to Henry's office. He read the page, jaw tight. He's moving fast, he said. He knows the forged deed is collapsing. Now he's stripping your assets before the freeze hits. What can I do? File an emergency injunction. We'll freeze every connected account and notify the sheriff. We worked in silence. The more I saw, the deeper the betrayal went. Retirement funds, insurance, even Carl's pension. Mark had drained them all in 48 hours. Henry's assistant faxed documents non-stop. You'll get a call from the bank soon, Henry said. They'll verify the fraud under oath. Once confirmed, you'll recover most of it. But he'll know we're coming. I want him to, I said. At noon the phone rang again, the bank manager, polite but uneasy. Mrs. Caldwell, your son said you approved these transfers. I didn't. Then we'll lock all his access. Do it, I said. And send me every transaction. When I hung up, I realized Mark wasn't just greedy, he was desperate. He must have sensed the wall closing in. Desperation makes fools loud. By evening, he stormed into my house without knocking. His eyes were wild. What did you do? I protected what's mine. You froze my accounts. You stole my life, I said quietly. He threw the papers on the table. His fake deed torn, useless. You turned my kids against me. No, I said. You did that when you forgot who you were stealing from. He paced, red-faced. You think you're clever? You can't win. I'm your son. This land will always come back to me. Not anymore, I said. It belongs to your children now. You taught them what not to become. He froze. You transferred it? Yes, I said. Before you forged mine. His voice cracked. You gave my inheritance to them? I gave it to someone who still calls me grandma without shame. He slammed the table so hard the lamp shook. You'll regret this. I already did, I said. The day you turned greed into family business. He left, slamming the door so loud it startled the horses outside. I stood alone in the quiet house, the echo of his anger still buzzing in the air. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from resolve. Henry called minutes later. The sheriff approved the injunction. Your accounts are safe. Now we go to the district attorney. We'll charge him with financial fraud and forgery. Will that send him to prison? If he keeps fighting, yes. But first he'll try to talk his way out. Be ready. At sunset, Emily called. Her voice was shaking. Irene, Mark's losing it. He says you ruined his life. I saved his children's, I said. She went quiet, then whispered. If you need me to testify, I will. That night I sat by the window watching headlights fade down the road. I knew Mark would come back. Not with apologies, but with lawyers' threats and excuses. But I wasn't the frightened widow he remembered. He taught me to fight like a mother. Carl taught me to finish like a Caldwell. The next morning Henry called again. We've got a court date and a problem. Your son hired a powerful attorney. Guess who? The same firm that handled your husband's estate. My son wasn't just fighting back. He was using my own past against me. Henry called before sunrise. His first words were a verdict. Your son hired Hart and Doyle, Carl's old firm. The men who handled our will, the same ones who wrote the protection clause now saving this land. He'd reached into my past and turned loyalty into a weapon. I dressed slowly, thinking of the letterhead that once brought condolences after Carl's funeral. The ink that once sealed trust now carried betrayal. When I reached Henry's office, he already had a file open. They'll pretend to care, he said. They'll use old memories to make you doubt yourself. Then let's remind them whose name they once printed in gold, I answered. Henry smiled faintly. Good. We file conflict of interest today. No emotion. Only paper. We wrote the motion in silence. Short surgical sentences. Prior representation. Overlapping estate documents. Ethical conflict. By noon we were standing in the county courthouse. The air smelled like dust and power. Mark sat at the defense table beside a tall man in a navy suit, smooth hair, bright cufflinks. Mr. Keene, the firm's senior partner. His smile was polite and hollow. The judge entered. Henry stood. Your Honor, the same firm now defending Mr. Caldwell once represented his late father. They cannot argue against the very clause they helped draft. Keene rose, voice warm. Respectfully, there is no record of that, Your Honor. Henry opened an envelope and placed a letter on the bench. The paper was old, yellowed, and signed by Keene himself 23 years ago. The final paragraph glowed under courtroom lights. We note Mr. Caldwell's wish to include a clause ensuring ownership reverts to direct descendants in the event of any fraudulent transfer. The judge looked up. Motion granted. Hart and Doyle are removed from counsel immediately. A quiet gasp rippled through the room. Keene's color drained. Mark turned toward him in disbelief, then toward me with hatred sharp enough to cut glass. Henry gathered his papers. Your Honor, we request a continuance to prepare new filings. Granted, the judge said. The gavel struck once final. Outside, the cold air felt cleaner. Emily was waiting on the steps, pale but fierce. He's furious, she whispered. He said you used Dad's memory against him. I used his father's integrity, I said. That's different. Henry adjusted his coat. He'll come at you another way now. Guardianship. He'll claim you're confused. If a judge believes him, he controls everything again. I almost laughed. He's going to call his mother insane? He'll call you vulnerable, Henry said. It sounds kinder in paperwork. That evening Emily phoned again. He's talking to a doctor he knows. He wants a letter saying you're losing focus. I wrote every word down: time, date, clinic name. Paper doesn't forget. Just after sunset, a knock shook the front door. A man in a brown jacket handed me an envelope. Service of process, he said softly. I opened it at the kitchen table. The first page screamed in black ink. Petition for temporary guardianship. Filed by Mark Caldwell. Claiming cognitive decline, financial confusion, and unsafe living conditions. Attached. A medical note from a clinic I had never visited. Signed by a doctor I'd never met. I called Henry immediately. Breathe, he said. We'll counter by morning. We'll show consistency, documentation, routine. Judges believe order. I have records for everything, I said. Feed schedules, bank statements, tax ledgers. Good, he said. Bring them all. Tomorrow we remind the court who really manages this farm. After the call I sat in silence. The kettle clicked off. Steam curled through the cold air. Outside, the barn light glowed like a watchful eye. My son thought lies could move faster than proof. He was wrong. I pulled a small wooden box from the cupboard, Carl's old lockbox. Inside were original letters from Hart and Doyle, every signature, every draft. Among them was one document even Henry had never seen. Carl's handwritten addendum, notarized and filed separately. A note that said, should disputes arise, ownership decisions rest solely with the surviving grantor until mental incapacity is proven in open court. That paper was my shield. The one document Mark didn't know existed. I slipped it into my coat pocket and looked through the window. The fields glimmered under moonlight, steady, loyal, waiting. Tomorrow, he'd arrive with deputies and a forged letter, claiming to protect me. He'd expect fear. What he'd find was law. At dawn, his truck would pull into the drive, court order in hand, and I'd meet him on the porch with witnesses, a camera, and my husband's final clause that would end his claim before it began. At dawn, the sound of tires on gravel woke me. I didn't need to look, I already knew. Mark's truck. 2 sheriff vehicles behind him. 3 silhouettes stepped out, dark against the pale morning. I dressed, buttoned my coat, and tucked Carl's handwritten addendum into the inside pocket. The kettle hissed behind me. I left it boiling. By the time I reached the porch, they were halfway up the steps. Mark walked first, chin high, holding an envelope like a trophy. The deputies followed, careful but uneasy. Mom, he said, voice syruped with fake concern. We're here for your safety. I folded my arms. You brought company. Just the sheriff's office, he said. Standard procedure. The court granted temporary guardianship. You'll stay with me until things are sorted. Sorted, I repeated. That's a generous word for theft. He ignored it. You can pack later. We'll take care of the animals. Deputy Miller, a man I'd known since he was a boy, cleared his throat. Mrs. Caldwell, this order authorizes temporary supervision. You'll need to come with us voluntarily. I nodded calmly. You're just doing your job, Tom. But before we go anywhere, you'll want to see this. I pulled the folded paper from my coat and handed it to him. Carl's signature old but strong. The notary's stamp still crisp. He read the single paragraph twice, then looked at Mark. Sir, this says any claim of incapacity must be proven in open court before removal. Mark's face reddened. That's ancient. It's void. No, it's recorded, I said. Filed under my husband's original will. Ask the clerk to verify the seal. Henry's truck pulled up just then, dust swirling behind it. He stepped out with a briefcase and a small camera crew from the local paper. Morning, he said easily. We're documenting today's events for transparency. Mark spun around. You called reporters? I didn't, I said. But truth attracts light. Henry handed the deputies a certified copy of the addendum and the active injunction order from yesterday's fraud case. Until these are resolved, no guardianship can proceed. The deputies exchanged looks. Miller lowered his voice. Sir, he said to Mark, this order is suspended pending court review. We can't remove her. Mark's voice cracked. You're making a mistake. She's confused. Confused. I said softly. Let's test that. I turned to the reporter's camera. Today's date? She replied. May 16th. I faced the deputy. County. Redfield, he said. And the man trying to steal my property? I looked at Mark. My son. The silence that followed was heavy enough to break air. Henry stepped forward. Mr. Caldwell, this is over. The injunction protects her assets, the deed protects the land, and this addendum locks guardianship until a hearing. Any further interference becomes harassment. Mark's breathing quickened. You're all against me. No, I said. You're against yourself. Emily's car rolled up the driveway. She got out, holding the children's hands. They looked frightened, caught between loyalty and truth. She whispered, Mark, stop. But he couldn't. Pride had teeth now. You think this is justice? You're humiliating me in front of my family. I took a step closer, calm as a winter field. Justice doesn't humiliate. It remembers. And today it remembered who this farm belongs to. Henry clicked his pen. Deputies, please note that she's in sound mind, oriented and legally protected. Miller nodded, writing in his pad. Confirmed. Mark tore the petition in half, pieces scattering across the porch. This isn't over, he hissed. I know, I said. That's what makes it interesting. He stormed down the steps, nearly tripping. The deputies followed silent. Emily stayed back, holding the kids close. When his truck vanished down the road, Henry exhaled. You handled that better than half the lawyers I know. I've had years of practice, I said. Anger is easy. Timing takes skill. The reporter lowered her camera. Mrs. Caldwell, do you want a statement for the paper? Yes, I said. Write this. Greed visits often, but truth always stays the night. Henry smiled faintly. Poetic and admissible. Perfect. We watched the sun climb over the barn, light brushing the fence line like forgiveness. But peace is never permanent. My phone buzzed with a new message, the bank again. Notification. Unauthorized transfer attempt, joint business account, Caldwell Farm LLC. Mark had found another way in. Before noon, the sheriff would call again. Not about trespass or guardianship this time, but about an arrest warrant. And my son's name would finally sit where it belonged, on the charge sheet. The sheriff's call came just before noon. His voice was steady but tight. Irene, your son tried to move funds from the farm's LLC account into a private one. We've frozen the transaction and opened a case. The district attorney wants statements from you and your attorney. My hands didn't shake. I'd expected this. When desperation runs out of lies, it grabs money. Henry arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a folder marked criminal complaint draft. He sat at my kitchen table and said quietly, "This is where it stops being family and starts being law." I signed the first affidavit. It felt less like revenge and more like maintenance, a fence post being set straight. We drove to the sheriff's office. Emily was already there, pale but calm, the children at her mother's house. She handed the sheriff a flash drive. "It's Mark's emails," she said. "He bragged about the transfers. Said he'd take back what Mom stole." Miller took it without a word. His face carried something like sorrow. We'll handle it clean, Mrs. Caldwell. He's still your son, but no one is above the law. When we stepped outside, the air felt heavier. I could smell the rain coming. Henry adjusted his hat. You know he'll call you tonight, begging, apologizing. Don't answer. Let the court speak for you. I'm done speaking, I said. By sunset, the call came anyway. His number. I let it ring 5 times, then picked up. His voice cracked. They're saying you pressed charges. Mom, please. You pressed them yourself, I said. Every time you forged, lied, or stole. I was trying to fix what you ruined. I ruined nothing. You inherited everything and still wanted more. He exhaled, ragged and angry. I'll make them drop it. I'll tell them you're not competent. You already tried that. Didn't go well. You think you've won? You'll die alone with your papers. Better alone with truth than surrounded by thieves. He hung up. I walked to the porch. The horizon was dark and waiting. The barn lights flickered under thick clouds. Thunder rolled low like the sky itself was keeping score. The next morning, a police cruiser idled at the end of my drive. 2 deputies stepped out, Miller and a young officer I didn't know. Henry stood beside me, his briefcase clasped like scripture. Miller nodded. We served the warrant at your son's office an hour ago. He resisted at first, then came quietly. He'll be processed and released on bail. Emily appeared a few minutes later, eyes red, voice low. He blamed you, then blamed me. But he signed every paper himself. I'll testify if you need me. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't testify for me. Testify for the children. She nodded through tears. Henry's phone buzzed. He read the message, smiled faintly. The district attorney filed formal charges. Forgery, wire fraud, and elder exploitation. It's official. I looked out over the fields. Rain had finally started, soft at first, then steady. The earth smelled alive again. Will he go to prison? I asked quietly. Henry hesitated. If he fights, yes. If he pleads, maybe probation and restitution. He'll fight, I said. Pride doesn't know mercy. We walked the fence line after the deputies left. The ground was slick, my boots sinking into mud. Every step reminded me of Carl, of decades spent keeping this soil honest. Henry broke the silence. You've done something rare, Irene. Most people chase revenge and lose themselves. You anchored it to law. That's strength. It's not strength, I said. It's memory. He forgot where he came from. That night I received a new message, not from Mark but from his lawyer. A settlement proposal. You drop the charges, he relinquishes all claims and apologizes publicly. Henry read it, then looked at me. Your choice. I'll decide tomorrow, I said. But as I sat by the fire, I already knew. Forgiveness is a door that only opens when the thief stops knocking. Mark wasn't done knocking yet. Outside, headlights flashed once in the distance. A car stopped at the gate. Then silence. I waited, watching the rain beat on the glass. A moment later, my phone lit up again. A text from Emily. He's gone. Took his truck. Said he's coming back to make you listen. Headlights cut through the storm, turning down my drive. And this time, Mark wasn't coming with papers. He was coming for something far more dangerous, the last shred of power he thought he still had. Rain slammed the roof like warning. Headlights cut through the fields, stopping at my gate. I set my phone to record and turned on the floodlights. The yard flared white. A text flashed from Emily. He left the house. Kids are safe. He's not thinking clearly. I typed one word back. Understood. The truck idled. Then a horn, long, angry. I pressed the gate intercom. You're on camera, Mark. You're under bail terms. No contact, no trespass. He shouted over the rain. Open up, Mom. We talk now. No, I said. You talk to your lawyer. He got out, drenched and furious. You turned my family against me. You think this land is yours forever? It belongs to the only Caldwells who still tell the truth. He threw an envelope over the fence. Legal notice. Read it. I didn't move. That's evidence, I said. Sheriff will open it. You think paper protects you? He yelled. It's the only thing that does. I dialed 911 on speaker. Bail violation. Active restraining order. Caldwell Farm Gate. The operator stayed calm. Units on the way, ma'am. Lightning split the sky. For one heartbeat I saw the boy he used to be. Then thunder erased him. He gripped the gate. Withdraw your statement. Sign the deed back and this ends. The deed belongs to your children, I said. You already signed away your right. A truck turned onto the lane. Henry stepped out, camera in hand. Evening, he said evenly. For the record, this is a violation. Mark spun. You brought a witness? I didn't need to, I said. Truth brings its own audience. Sirens rose behind the storm. 2 cruisers arrived, red lights flashing across wet ground. Deputy Miller stepped out, hat low, voice firm. Mr. Caldwell, step away from the gate. Hands up. Mark hesitated. I came to talk to my mother. You came to violate bail, Miller said. Turn around. He didn't. Instead, he shouted. Tell them about the option, Mom. Tell them you knew. What option? I asked. He smiled, proud and bitter. The development deal. I signed last week as farm manager. The developer filed it. Your title's clouded now. You can't sell, can't borrow, can't touch a dime. The deputies moved in. Turn around. This time he obeyed. Metal cuffs clicked under thunder. Miller read him his rights. Henry joined me under the porch. You'll want to check your email. I opened it. A new message glowed. Notice of option contract. A fake deal giving a developer claim over my land. The date was after the transfer to my grandkids. The signature block said Mark Caldwell, manager. Fraud stacked on fraud, Henry muttered. We'll crush this by morning. As they led Mark away, he twisted once. You'll regret this, Mom. They'll take everything. They already tried, I said. Now they'll pay for it. When the cruisers left, the rain eased. The envelope he'd thrown sat soaked on the porch. Henry picked it up with gloves. We'll log it. No surprises. Inside, we spread the documents on the table. His new contract was laughable. $1 for full purchase rights, signed after he'd lost ownership. Same notary as the forged deed. The pattern was complete. Henry circled the date. This gets him revoked on bail instantly. We'll file at dawn. Do it, I said. And copy the district attorney. He nodded. You realize he's building his own cell one signature at a time. He's building it the way Carl built this fence, I said. Straight and unbreakable. Just facing the wrong direction. My phone buzzed again. Emily. He called from the car. Said you ruined him. Said the developer will crush you. I typed back. They can't crush what's already solid. Henry packed his briefcase. Rest. Tomorrow we strike the option, the memorandum, and his bail. I'll rest when the paper's dry, I said. He smiled. That's the Irene I know. When he left, I sat at the window. The field shimmered under moonlight, quiet again. My reflection looked older, stronger, finished. I whispered to the land. He can't break what truth holds. Lightning flickered once more across the fence line. The gate stood closed, silver and still. Then my phone buzzed again, this time from the clerk's office. Filed 6:02 a.m. Lease pendants on Caldwell property. Mark's deal had reached the court before dawn. In a few hours, I'd face the developer's lawyer in open court. And win or lose, the fight for the farm would end there. Dawn broke gray and silent. I poured coffee I didn't drink. Henry arrived with one red folder marked option strike. We end this today, he said. The courthouse smelled of rain and paper. The clerk stamped our filings. Motion to strike the option. Motion to expunge the lease pendants. Motion to revoke bail. Every page was a nail closing a coffin. Across the aisle stood the developer's lawyer, Mr. Vale, neat suit, steady smirk. No need for hostility, he said. We're just doing business. This isn't business, I said. It's theft with stationery. The judge entered, weary but sharp. Henry began. Your Honor, the so-called option was signed by a man stripped of ownership, under active bail, for $1. It relied on a forged notary, already under investigation. He placed the deed, injunction, and arrest record on the table, lined like fence posts. Mr. Vale adjusted his cufflinks. My client acted in good faith. We saw a recorded option. We relied on the record. The lease pendants is proper until ownership is settled. The judge flipped the paper. A contract without price or authority isn't a contract. It's wishful thinking. Henry added. He wasn't a manager. The company didn't exist. The judge nodded once. Lease pendants expunged. Option void for fraud and lack of authority. Clerk will remove the recording today. The gavel struck. Mr. Vale's smirk cracked. Henry wasn't finished. Your Honor, we also request bail revocation. The signer violated his order at Mrs. Caldwell's property last night. Deputies witnessed it. Deputy Miller stepped forward. Confirmed. Body cam footage available. Bail revoked, the judge said. Warrant issued. Relief didn't feel like triumph. It felt like breath after drowning. Outside, rain softened to mist. Henry exhaled. You've won, Irene. At least on paper. Paper's where I live, I said. My phone buzzed. Emily's voice trembled. He's at his office packing. Said he'll fix everything. Let the deputies handle him, I said. We drove home. The fields glistened. Ordinary again. The way peace always looks small after war. At the gate, an unmarked envelope waited in the mailbox. Inside, a single typed note. I was wrong. I thought taking was strength. I'm sorry, Mom. No name. No signature. Just surrender. Henry slid it into a sleeve. Keep it, he said. Even ashes prove there was fire. We stepped onto the porch. The farm stood still, wet and alive. My phone buzzed once more. A new email. Notice of restitution hearing 1 week from today. Henry read it. We'll ask for repayment and costs. I'll ask for truth, I said. And a trust for my grandchildren. He'll never touch another dollar. Henry smiled. That's mercy with locks. For the first time in months, I let the silence settle. The fight had form now, signatures, orders, proof. Then another message arrived. A voicemail transcript appeared on the screen. It's me. I know the warrant's coming. Meet me at the barn at dusk. I'll sign whatever you want. Henry looked at me. You shouldn't go. I know, I said. But I will. The barn has cameras. The truth deserves its final recording. I reached for Carl's old fountain pen. The weight felt right, heavy, certain, final. At dusk, I'd walk to the barn and face my son one last time. With a document that could end everything he'd ever claimed. Evening settled slow, heavy as truth. I walked to the barn with Carl's fountain pen in my pocket and a red folder under my arm. The cameras blinked red. The lights carved sharp lines through the rain. Mark stood by the wall, soaked and shaking. I'll sign, he said. Just tell me where. First you read, I answered. I opened the folder. 10 pages, confession, restitution, release of claims, surrender of accounts, apology. Plain final. He skimmed. You want every name. I want every lie unburied. His voice cracked. If I sign, will you ask for mercy? I'll ask for honesty. Mercy's earned later. He picked up the pen, paused. You always were colder than the land. The land never forged a signature, I said. He signed the first page, then another. On page 3 he hesitated. You'll hate me forever. I stopped hating when I started writing, I said. He signed again. The pen scratched slow. On page 7 he tried to skip ahead. I tapped the numbered corner. I count for a living. He grimaced and kept going. At the 9th page he whispered. This will bury me. No, I said. It will stop you from digging. Thunder rolled as he reached the last page, the apology. I was weak, he said. Then be strong once, I said. He signed. Dated it. The camera light blinked steady. Outside, tires crunched on gravel. Blue light swept across the barn. Mark's shoulders stiffened. You called them. I told the truth, I said. Deputy Miller stepped in. Mr. Caldwell, you're under arrest for bail violation. Hands up. Mark didn't fight. He only asked, will she still press charges? I answered, the law will. I just gave it a voice. They cuffed him quietly. Rain fell between us like a curtain. He looked back once. Tell the kids I tried to make it right. I'll tell them you finally did something honest, I said. Miller nodded toward the folder. You got what you needed? Every word, I said. The door shut behind them. The barn fell still. I sat on a crate, watching the red recording light blink until the rain softened to mist. Henry stepped from the shadows holding a towel. He signed everything? All 10 pages. He checked the numbers, satisfied. Then we file at dawn. I breathed out. It's over. Almost, Henry said. Developers still circle when they smell weakness. My phone buzzed. A new message. Mr. Vale. My client withdraws all claims. But your son's company owes a debt secured by the farm's equipment. Repossession begins at sunrise. Henry read it. He mortgaged your tractors. Then I'll meet them, I said. Paper against paper. The barn light flickered once, then steadied. The fields outside were silent, waiting for morning. I hung Carl's pin on its hook and whispered. The truth signed its name tonight. At sunrise, trucks would come with chains and orders, and I'd have one chance to stop them before they took the last piece of my farm. Morning came sharp, pale, and final. Fog hugged the fields like a warning. I heard engines before I saw them. Heavy trucks crawling up the lane, chains clattering against metal. Henry stood beside me on the porch, red folder under his arm. They're early, he said. People who steal twice always are, I answered. 2 men stepped down from the lead truck, one in a county vest, the other in a gray coat with a clipboard. The gray one spoke first. Mrs. Caldwell, we're here on behalf of First Plains Lending. We hold a lien against Caldwell Farm Equipment, dated last year. We're repossessing all assets listed. Henry handed him a folder. That lien belonged to a company dissolved 12 months ago. The man who signed the note has confessed to fraud and is under arrest. The equipment belongs to minors under court protection. The man glanced at the papers, then shook his head. Until I see a release, I move the tractors. I stepped forward. Then you'll move through a court order. I have one. I opened the folder and showed the injunction stamped the night before. Title frozen pending criminal restitution. The county officer read it, his jaw tightening. Ma'am, that's valid. We can't seize protected assets. The gray man swore under his breath. You'll regret fighting this. I stopped regretting when I stopped losing, I said. He climbed back into his truck. The engines idled for a minute, then died. One by one, the rigs turned down the lane and vanished into fog. Henry exhaled. That's the last knock, Irene. You kept the land. No, I said. The land kept me. We walked the fence line together. The grass glittered with frost. Each post stood straight, proof that some things survive storms because they learn not to bend too soon. My phone buzzed. An email from the district attorney. Case to close pending restitution hearing. Assets safe. Confession received. I forwarded it to Emily. She replied one word, thank you. Henry stopped at the gate. You could sell now. Walk away rich. I could, I said. But then who would teach my grandchildren what paper really means? He smiled. Then you stay. We went back to the porch. The sun broke through the mist, gold and slow. For the first time in months, silence didn't feel like waiting, it felt like peace. I pulled Carl's pen from my pocket and set it on the railing. It's strange, I said. This pen has written every kind of ending. Henry nodded. Today it wrote freedom. The children's laughter drifted from the yard. Emily had brought them early. They ran toward the barn, boots splashing through puddles. Their voices sounded like new seasons. Emily joined me on the porch. Mom, is it really over? Yes, I said. Because now it's written down. She looked toward the field. Dad's name will still be on the news. Then let them read what he confessed, I said. That's all the truth needs, daylight and ink. Henry gathered his folders. I'll file the restitution papers before noon. After that, the state handles the rest. Good, I said. I've got fences to mend. The trucks were gone, the sky open, the farm quiet. I turned the key on the barn door, one clean sound, one clean ending. As we walked back to the porch, I felt no triumph, only steadiness. Revenge had turned into something quieter. Order, balance, peace. I looked at the horizon. He called this place a burden once, I said. But burdens teach you how strong you really are. Henry smiled. So what's next? Planting, I said. Always planting. I reached for the porch light switch, and the red camera blinked off for the first time in months. If you ever think you're powerless, remember this. The calmest revenge is truth on paper. It doesn't scream. Stands, it waits, and when the time is right, it wins.